Hey guys, Jack, and we have to talk about the London Derby that happened a couple of days ago. Arsenal blew away Chelsea, and it was such a comprehensive performance by Arteta's side. And Pochettino has to ask a couple of questions about his team, so let's jump into it. So Arsenal itself in their typical 4-3-3 system, and it wasn't really much of a change. I think the only really big alteration was that instead of Jorginho, Thomas Partey started this game, and overall I thought he had a very solid game despite still being out, still not completely match sharp. I thought he did incredibly well, just marshalling that, in midfield and allowing the likes of Odegaard and Rice to be a bit more fluid. Then when we look at Chelsea's team, they were a lot more rotated than I expected. So obviously without Cole Palmer and Malo Gusto, they were going to be obviously short on players. So instead that they opted to put Conor Gallagher in that behind the number 10 role, where Palmer would typically go, and the likes of Mudryk and Madueke were on the wing as kind of really quick technical players that allow Chelsea to break, which is kind of what I was saying in the preview that that's what they probably need to do. And then obviously without Malo Gusto, they opted to play Alfie Gilchrist. But the one crucial thing I think ultimately cost them in this match was the centre back pairing. And you see that they picked Dizazi and Badiashile, and while both of them are good defenders in their own right, considering how the performances of Chalobah and Thiago Silva, and I understand they only played a few days prior, but I was really surprised that he selected such two different defenders, especially with Badiashile, who hasn't played that much. He's been suffering through injuries throughout the season, and he kind of came into this match quite cold, and because of that, it really exposed him on several occasions, especially down that right hand side, or sorry, that left hand side for Chelsea. And that was kind of the situation throughout the entire game. From the get go, Arsenal were really good at just targeting those wing backs, and I think what really affected Chelsea, which ultimately led to them conceding their first goal, was that the wingers weren't tracking back and helping the back line. Likes of Madueke and Mudryk weren't tracking back, which allowed the likes of Ben White, Saka, Tomiyasu and Trossard to just have free reign on that side. And I really think Gilchrist has a future at Chelsea. I don't know whether it'll be this year, next year, because presumably he's going to go out on loan, but it's definitely not going to be at right back. And I think just because of he was just completely isolated. This is his only first start in the Premier League, and the fact that he had to come up against Trossard and had no support from Madueke or Fernandez, like he struggled immensely, and like you saw a lot of free reign with that, and ultimately, Arsenal got their first goal, and you kind of thought there was going to be a few more, but I think there were some positives in that first half for Chelsea. We saw how when they compacted and they stayed a lot more solid defensively, that once they got the ball out, the likes of Nicholas Jackson, I thought on a couple of occasions made Gabriel and Saliba look very, very like amateur in some ways. Nicholas Jackson seems to has a lot of pace, and I keep forgetting how quick he can be, but also how strong he is. Like, he was able to hold off Gabriel and Saliba, and if it was for his finishing towards the end of it, and I think it's more down to the fatigue that he wasn't able to, be as composed, that they could have potentially gotten an equaliser in the first half. And it was quite shocking because Mudryk and Madueke weren't really making such great strides going forward, but that just happens sometimes. And there was obviously one or two set pieces, especially corner kicks, that Chelsea could have equalised from, like Dizazi and Badiashile had opportunities, but they weren't able to capitalise, and that's kind of what led into the second half, where it just all completely imploded. The second half really showed the quality of Arsenal, and they didn't really change from the style that they were playing in the first half, but I think they were just a lot more secure on the ball, and we saw that in countless occasions with Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. They really were able to stitch up play, and they really prevented Chelsea from getting pushing beyond the halfway line. Like, besides Nicholas Jackson having one good goal, I think Gallagher played him through and he just put it on the opposite, put it past the post. Chelsea didn't really have any other opportunities beyond the second half. And in that second half, Arsenal were just really fluid, and I thought it was probably the most impressive performance in that regard, being able to play intricate 1-2 passing. And they really exposed the lack of defensive nous that this Chelsea team have. They weren't really together in terms of just their system and how they were playing. We saw how Ben White was overlapping, and I feel sorry for Cucurella, because I thought he actually had a decent game overall. Well, granted, they weren't great defensively, they weren't great, but I thought he just was completely isolated, and he did quite well on the few occasions, in the situation, especially against Saka. But Ben White making overlapping runs, and it was a set piece that ultimately led to Ben White getting his first goal of the night. And just no one put pressure on him, and as a result, and like that kind of summed up Chelsea's defensive woes, that night. And then we saw the likes of Odegaard, just was beautiful in that match. Just getting a couple of assists. Kai Havertz with a great through on goal and just bullied Kukurea to ultimately put it above Petrovic. And he also didn't have a great game, but I don't think he was helped as well by his defence either. And then Ben White with the most ludicrous cross, which went into the top corner. Just no chance. It was just one of those goals. And Trossard then with a really nice goal as well. Overall, they just were really good. And I think, and especially in that second half, Arsenal showed a lot of composure. And you saw, and like they probably could have gotten a few more goals because they were just playing really well, intricate passing. And, it was a bit better decision making. I mean, Kai Havertz had a couple of instances in the first half where he could have been better to lay it off to Trossard. And there was another one where he tried to pass it instead of going at it himself with his right foot. Because I think it was Odegaard who was going to run onto it. But they were really good overall in general. And in the second half, you saw how well they were able to play around Chelsea's press. I thought that Saka didn't really have a particularly great game. I know he picked up an assist, but he just wasn't that great throughout the game. But I think what he was able to do was that he occupied the minds of the likes of Kukurea, Caicedo. I think it was Badiashile on that side, where they had to kind of keep an eye on him, and that allowed for Ben White to make overlapping runs and put a lot of dangerous crosses in. I thought it was just an incredible performance by Arsenal, and Chelsea weren't great to be honest. Arsenal were brilliant overall, and probably was one of their best matches of the season, and it's the biggest result that they've had against Chelsea in London Derby since in the Premier League era. And when we look at Chelsea, they were very poor in the night. They were completely bypassing the midfield, and I don't think it helped that they just were playing a few rotated players. Obviously, without Palmer and Gusto, they seemed to just struggle to advance the ball, and besides, as I said in the first half, a few runs by Nicholas Jackson, they struggled to even get out of their own half at times. And even when the subs came on, like Sterling came on, and Cassidy, they just struggled to just kind of maintain composure throughout the game. And it was quite damning that despite being 5-0 down, Pochettino finally made the substitution to bring on Trevor Chalobah and Thiago Silva on and pushed Chalobah out into the right back slot. And he did quite well to nullify Trossard and then Gabriel. I thought it was mad to think that, like in my preview, I thought it would be a 2-1 win to Arsenal. It would be a difficult match. But that just was far from the case. And I understand the frustration of Chelsea fans. It is a very difficult situation to be in, seeing that seeing your team kind of crumble as much at the Emirates and not be able to kind of show up for it at times. I don't know what to kind of make of it, and I don't know the intricacies of the players, their player mindset, because that's just not, we're not privy to that information. But I say it's very difficult for the Chelsea players just to kind of deal with something like that. And maybe they kind of understand that maybe the season's kind of past them at this stage. They still have an outside chance of qualifying for Europe, but because of the PSR regulations, especially with UEFA, they probably won't be able to make play in European competition unless they sell a lot of players. And I don't know what's going to happen with that, because they have if they do make it, will they just kind of refuse the invitation, or take a ban, or just sell everyone as possible? Because there's still speculation, like we've seen how Conor Gallagher seems to be up for sale because he has a year left in his deal, and doesn't seem like Chelsea want to offer the money that he deserves really to sign. Trevor Chalobah, who has been, since coming back from a long-term injury, has probably been one of their best defenders, is up for sale. And a few of those other players as well are kind of in the shop window. Thiago Silva's going to be out, and I wouldn't be surprised if they want to try to get rid of Raheem Sterling, because clearly Pochettino doesn't seem to want to use him. And I think it's just a really difficult situation for Pochettino. I thought he's done well this season, despite the whole carousel of madness that's going on at Stamford Bridge. But I can understand why there's going to be a lot of questions by Todd Bowley and Clearlake about his position in the summer. I don't know what to take of it, because it is a very difficult situation to be in, especially when you're trying to build a new team and you have so many young players that you don't have enough experienced players to call upon to kind of teach them the ways of either, getting through these difficult stages, how to compose yourselves in these big matches where clearly you're second best. So how do we kind of nullify that and potentially break? Because you saw there was times where they could have broken and got an equaliser against Arsenal, But unfortunately, I think Nicholas Jackson just, it was one of those cases where he just ran out of steam so quickly that he couldn't, do something with the game, at the end. And that's going to happen with a young striker who had his first time playing the Premier League. He was naturally a winger before he came to Stamford Bridge, and I think once he clicks, he can be incredible. But they need another striker, more experienced forward to teach him the ways. Because besides him, the second choice was Armando Broja before he went to Fulham on loan. And I think it's just been a very difficult situation for Chelsea. So I don't know what's going to happen now in the summer, but there could be some huge movement both in the player personnel and potentially Pochettino. And I don't think they should move him on. I've been reiterating that before, but I understand if he does move on, the reasons why that has been the case. End this section on a bit more of a positive note. As I said, Arsenal played incredibly well. A lot of the players I thought did really well, and as I said, Partey did well, kind of in that midfield. Rice as well. I thought Havertz was really good going forward. Although he made a couple of poor decisions, I thought his overall play was really good and really helped link the midfield to attack and played as that false nine. It was incredible. But I have to give it to Martin Odegaard, who got 2 assists, and I just think he was outstanding. And I thought he just was so intricate and I think he probably deserves a goal just to kind of like sum it up, or just even another couple of assists, because he just was so influential throughout that entire game. He's just been incredible for them. And while they're going to still chasing the title, and they're still technically behind Man City, because Man City still have 2 games in hand, and I know they're behind them in the table, but they, given their luck, and they're going to be playing Brighton tonight. I just think he's been incredible this season, and he's just been incredible. He's been an incredible captain, despite having come from Real Madrid, having moved from Sturm Graz, that's definitely not how you pronounce it, going on loan to Heerenveen, Vitesse and Real Sociedad, to becoming arguably one of the best midfielders in the Premier League and potentially in Europe. Like, he is going to have a huge impact towards how they finish off the season, and he is incredible, and I hope that he continues to perform at the same level as prime Kevin De Bruyne or prime Cesc Fabregas. It was just incredible to watch him. So that's it for this section. Let's quickly run through the rest of the Premier League fixtures. So to quickly run through the rest of the Premier League fixtures, Bournemouth picked up a huge win against Wolves, and while they were probably a bit fortunate that Max Kilman was deemed offside, and I feel sorry for Gary O'Neill once again for VAR, and just he hasn't had the best luck with PGMOL, but it was the right call, and Bournemouth did well, and the Kirkes red card, very much red card. So it was just a great win for them overall. Great, and the ball fell to Semenyo and he finished as well. Then Crystal Palace with Jean-Philippe Mateta picking up two good goals by a forward. Eberechi Eze once again was incredible and incredibly influential, and I thought as well Will Hughes seemed to have done really well, and Newcastle struggled to create really much against Crystal Palace, and that's a huge credit to Glasner and just how he set up his team. They seem a lot more secure, and they've had really good form now, and they're going to comfortably survive the season, and maybe they can, and that's something they can build on now for this upcoming summer. And then then we obviously had United, who had a couple of scares in this match, obviously going down to Sheffield United twice. First one was a mistake by Andre Onana, then the second one just was decent play from Sheffield United, but United ultimately deserved to win this in the end. They had plenty of chances, and despite a few last-ditch blocks and Wes Foderingham having a really good game, they, United were comfortable winners here. Bruno Fernandes was integral to this game. I think 2 goals and assist, and I felt sorry for Dalot, who didn't get his goal, despite scoring when the penalty was called on Maguire. Great header by him actually for their equaliser. And yeah, he's just so integral, and you see how important he is to the side, Bruno Fernandes. He's just incredible, and they'd be lost without him. Similar to kind of how Cole Palmer is at Chelsea. They definitely would be lost without him, and they still have an outside chance of qualifying for the Europa League and even potentially the Champions League, but it's very unlikely because Villa and Spurs would really need to fall off a cliff. But anything's possible, and I think they're going to have to deal with Europa League football. But there is pieces here, and whether Ten Hag is there in the summer or not, we have to kind of wait and see what happens with that. And last up, we got to talk about this match between Everton and Liverpool. I thought Everton probably had one of their best matches I've watched. They were incredibly disciplined, and they really nullified Liverpool. And granted, we've spoken about how Liverpool have struggled to finish off their chances, and Darwin Núñez was an antithesis of that. He struggled a lot, and it was both his touch, his decision making, and he was just rushing his shots. He had a couple of good chances, but Pickford matched them. And while Gary Neville, who was on Sky commentary, was very he wasn't really happy with him. I understand, I think it was a bit unfair to kind of say that he should have finished all these. Like, he definitely should, in terms of, being a top forward at a club like Liverpool. But that just happens sometimes. And I just think, I don't think he's solely to blame. I mean, no one in the attack in front looked really good going forward. And I just think Everton were incredible in this match. Godfrey was incredible down that right-hand side. Whenever they managed to, relieve the pressure that they had on their back line, who I thought all of them did well. That we had McNeil and Harrison being able to get out of different tricky spots. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin just really good as kind of that target forward. Decore running off him. Garner and Idrissa Gueye was immense. And Everton deserves this win. And to end the Klopp farewell tour with a defeat against their derby rivals is incredible to see. And Sean Dyche in his tracksuit is the key to everything, apparently. Klopp was very disappointed with what happened, and he apologised to Liverpool fans. But you can't. But while they definitely should have done better in terms of the quality that they had, I think this, the fact that they were in a title race for so long was just a credit to their character. But looking at what has happened with their team, the amount of injuries that they've had, and the amount of fixtures that they've had, I think the top four finish is just what they were aiming for from the start of the season, and they've overperformed the season. And I think it's just that they're now coming to the means, while Everton have picked up a huge result. And I want to wish Mikalenko a swift recovery. If you saw the footage of him, he landed awkwardly, and I think he broke his ankle. It looks horrible, but he somehow managed to play another 10 minutes, of regular and extra and stoppage time in the first half. He's an absolute animal, and I'm just immensely baffled that he was able to continue on. But I hope, as I'm recording this, I don't know what the extent of it is, but I hope it is a swift thing, and he probably is out for the rest of the season. But we saw how Ashley Young did when he came on. He did quite well. So I think Everton are all but secure, in the Premier League once again. And while they won't be moving to the new stadium next season, hopefully now they have kind of under the 777 partners that they can figure out what they need to do now in the summer in terms of recruitment, personnel, that kind of thing. And just be a bit more financially frugal towards the end of the season. And for Liverpool, it looks like their title race could be over. Again, they'll have to rely on Arsenal's form completely dropping, and City just having an absolute mare going into the last few games of the season. But unfortunately, it looks like Klopp's farewell tour is going to end without a trophy. And while that is very sad to say, it might mean whoever comes in next, which is reportedly going to be Arne Slot from Feyenoord, that they'll have a less daunting task when it comes into the summer. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.